What's up, guys? Today I'm going to bring you a quick head-to-head duel between two amazing Seiko divers. On the left, I have the Seiko Turtle, and on the right, I have the Seiko Sumo, but this is the blue dial, so it's also nicknamed the Blumo. And you can see down this list here, I have 10 important criteria that I think are really important for having a long-lasting relationship with your watch. It's a 10-point scale, and I'm going to total it at the very end. So let's get right into it, guys. And I'm going to start by talking about the Seiko in-house movements. Now, with the Seiko Turtle on the left here, it gets an 8 out of 10. It's very solid. It has the Seiko 4R36 movement, which both of these movements actually operate with the same accuracy and beat frequency, so the sweep of the second hand is similar. This one has a day and date complication. You can see at the 3 o'clock. And its power reserve is about 40 hours. Now, with the Seiko Blumo here, it steps up to the 6R caliber of in-house movements by Seiko. And again, it's very similar to the 4R series, except you have the increased power reserve of 50 hours. And in this one, you only have the date window, but I think it adds to the symmetry of the dial too. So it gets a 9 out of 10. Now let's talk about design. The Seiko Turtle, it's a reissue of the original turtles that were made popular in the 1970s. And I believe it was made and called the Turtle because of just the case shape. It's got this coin edge bezel all around it, which makes it very comfortable. But I mean, again, it's also more of a retro vintage look. It's not as modern, but it's very comfortable. Design-wise, I'm giving the edge to the Blumo, and it's almost flawless. It gets a 9 out of 10. And what really did it for me was just how they just did the case design. I mean, if you just look at these beautiful transitions, the transition between brush and polish along the case, the angular and nice nature of the lugs, you have a great signed crown that's gnarled well. And even the top of the lugs, you just get these beautiful bevels and transitions between brush and polishing. And you know, the design of these is slightly different too when you consider things like the bezel and the handset. With the Turtle, you have this really nice like hour pointer on the minute hand, and the second hand, you kind of have this the loom pip is like the counterbalance to the actual seconds. Whereas on the Blumo here, you know, you have really broadsword hands for the minute and hour, and then the second hand, you can kind of see it's almost got this like cathedral loom pip that extends to the front and almost touches the chaptering of, or the indices of the dial, which I kind of prefer as opposed to the counterpoint lollipop second hand here on the Turtle. Bezel-wise, you know, you have a Pepsi bezel on the Turtle. It's actually kind of nice. It's easier to read up to 20 minutes versus the Blumo. The Blumo actually, if you look at the font, it's a much larger font, and I just think it's more of a modern and clean look. But those are just some of the differences in design. But my overall preference does go to the Blumo. When we're talking about performance, I mean, again, within the Seiko Prospects line, these are both Prospects watches. I mean, you get really great performance that I think are really identical. You know, it's very robust, very reliable, and durable. So they both get 8s out of 10. Now, comfort. This is the important criteria that I don't think many people consider when buying a watch. A lot of people are caught up in, you know, the specs and the look, but comfort's really important. And I really want to say the Turtle knocks it out of the park in this department, and a lot of it is just due to this coin cushion case. You know, you can see how the coin edge, it kind of extends past the bezel a bit, and it also it's really round, and the lug to lug distance here is actually fairly short, and it just sits so well and flush on your wrist. It's very, very comfortable. So it gets a 10 out of 10. With the Blumo here, you know, you get good wrist presence. It's a little heftier. You do notice it more. And you do have these long angular lugs. The lug to lug is actually, I think, 4 or 5 millimeters longer. So it's a little more noticeable, but it's still comfortable. It gets an 8 out of 10. Quality wise, with the Turtle, I mean, again, uh, you're getting kind of small upgrades with respect to, the crystal and the movement compared to the 1970 issue of the Turtle. But I still have some, I don't know, QC issues that are common, I think, across a lot of people's Seiko divers, and that's like the misaligned chaptering. If I hold this up, I don't know if you can tell, but if you look at the 6 o'clock marker, I feel like the chaptering is almost shifted clockwise slightly away from that marker. It's kind of minor. I can let it go, but it's something like that's there that I think kind of lowers the quality just a little bit. A signed crown would have been nice, but again, you are paying homage to the original Turtle. I think the quality is slightly better on the Blumo. It gets an 8 out of 10, and I think that's with this watch, what I like is the all the applied indices have a really nice silver border around them, and you can kind of see that it lines up really well with the chaptering and the bezel. So I think everything is aligned really nicely, and the case design is better on this. So it gets an 8 out of 10. And then let's talk about style here. When we're talking about style, I mean the Seiko Turtle. I mean, it's a really nice utilitarian dive watch. If you like more of a vintage aesthetic, then this is definitely your ticket. It gets an 8 out of 10. Again, I'm giving the slight nod to the Blumo. I'm giving it a 9 out of 10 for style. And I just think it's more of a modern look. Everything from just the curves of the case, even the bezel, the font on the bezel is more modern. You have almost like the case shrouding a lot of portions of the bezel, and even the way that the bezel slightly slopes in towards the hardlex crystal and having a slight doming effect. I just think it's a little more stylish, a little more modern. Now let's talk about versatility. Again, the Seiko Turtle, it's fairly versatile, but it is a vintage looking diver, so it gets a 7 out of 10. I don't think you can wear it in more formal settings, but it's a great sports watch. With the Blumo, I've tried to do this by throwing it on this leather NATO strap. I tried to dress it up a little, and I do feel like you can kind of pull that off because it is a more modern and just like aesthetically pleasing looking diver. Durability. Both of these, I mean, they're both Seiko divers. I think that's durability is a hallmark of most Seiko models with their in-house movements. They're really tough cases. And Hardlex Crystal, while it's not sapphire, it's more shatter resistant. And I mean, I don't see any scratches on my watch, and I've had these for years. So very durable. Both gets 9s out of 10. Brand, I mean, this isn't going to change. They're both Seiko Prospect divers. But let me just talk about Seiko quickly. They're one of my favorite companies. I think they're fairly ubiquitous with anyone who knows watches. They have a long horological background. They even predate Rolex by a few years. And they've made significant advances. In North America, I think there's sometimes a bit of a stigma because they do sell a full gamut of different, price points and watch lines. Like you can start with a Seiko 5s for under $100, which are really great watches. And then you can go all the way up to your Grand Seikos, which can cost, just as much as a Rolex does. So I don't know. I think they're undeniable. They're a great watch brand. 9 out of 10. And then lastly, let's talk about value. When I purchase these watches, I see there's usually a defined range. The Turtle you can usually find between 300 to 450 Canadian, and I purchased this, at that lower tier closer to $300. And when you're considering that type of price range, you're getting a ton of watch for the money. And I give it a 9 out of 10. Now with the Blumo here, again, there's a price range, and I usually see it around 550 to closer to 700 Canadian. But when you're factoring in that price, I think the value proposition is slightly higher for the Turtle because it's already doing so much right. But it still gets a 7 out of 10. You know, it would have been nice to see something like sapphire crystal with anti-reflective coating, something like that. But you know, you still get good value out of this watch. And they're both really, really, you know, really good value propositions. So that brings that kind of brings all my criteria to an end. Let's look at the totals. It's a very close battle, guys. If I had to lean towards only owning one of these watches, I would give it to the Blumo. And it's only because it's a more modern design, and I feel like it's slightly more versatile. And I mean, blue is my favorite color. But you can't go wrong with either piece. The Turtle is definitely a great watch in its own right. I will just conclude this video by throwing both on the wrist and you know, showing you guys how they wear, and hopefully that can kind of inform you in making your own decision about purchasing these watches. Okay guys, so here's a wrist shot. Let me just start on my left wrist here. You know, Seiko Blumo. I just think, you know, I'm trying to dress it up with this nice leather NATO. And this is actually a 22 millimeter leather NATO, and it fits snugly on the Blumo, which only has 20 millimeter lugs. But I think it wears really, really nicely. And again, I think it just dresses it up a little bit. And then let's talk about the Turtle here. I've got it on this really, really nice and supple silicone strap, and you can see it just has red stitching that I really think complements, you know, the Pepsi bezel and just the red markings around the bezel on the Turtle. So, you know, both really well, wear really well, I should say. This Turtle is really comfortable, and you can see how it does have a shorter lugs. It sits really nice. And then, you know, the Blumo, slightly bigger wrist presence, but just finished really nicely as well. So that's about it, guys. Please let me know what you guys think. I mean, really can't go wrong with either of these Seiko divers. I'll catch you guys in the next video.